In this session, we're going to talk about AWS command line tool or AWS CLI. Amazon Web Services has an extremely functional and easy to use web console called the AWS Management Console, as you can see here. It's brilliant for performing complex tasks on your AWS infrastructure. Although, as a Linux sysadmin, you may want something more console friendly, right? So in early September 2013, I think, Amazon released version 1 of AWS CLI, AWS console. So not just using the AWS CLI, the command line, sorry. So you're not going to use the console anymore. AWS CLI, which is the command line. It's a very powerful command line interface which can be used to manage AWS services, right? So there's going to be a two-part series. I'll provide you some working example of how to use AWS CLI to provision a few AWS services, right? For those who are unfamiliar with AWS and wanting to know a bit more, Amazon has excellent documentation on AWS. There are tons of information and documents online that you can go and read. Uh, First of all, what we need to do, we have to install a couple of tools to be able to install AWS CLI. I think I've done it a couple of times. For example, if I go back here, okay, so I don't have it here. Okay, so first, what you have to do, you have to install Xcode Mac install. So there, if I can find the command line for it, should be great. Yeah. So this is the command that you need. Copy and paste. Put it here, and on sudo just in case. Okay, it's already installed on my MacBook. This is just for Mac and Windows. So basically this is completely installed. So I don't need to install this anymore. And one more thing, you have to install Brew. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with Brew, but Brew is it's as it says, the missing package manager for Mac OS. So Homebrew, just run this command, and you're going to see some missing packages that exist on Linux and doesn't exist on Mac. You can just use Brew to install all these tools, right? So just run this command, and you'll have Homebrew on your MacBook. Okay. Like this one. Okay. So after you've installed Brew and Xcode, you're going to install pip. So install AWS using pip. Basically, that's what we're going to do. So here's the command: pip install AWS CLI. Okay. I have already installed this one. Just try to do sudo pip install. Let's see what it says. I'm pretty sure you won't get this error anymore. Okay, here we go. So I have already installed it, so I don't need to reinstall it again. Now, AWS configure. It will ask you for a couple of things. For example, your AWS access key ID, which is so to get that AWS access key ID, you have to go to your security credentials. you have to go to the users. You have to add a user, okay? You add the username, the password. I can just do it for you so one more time, so you'll get familiar with the whole thing. Let me just do it for you one more time. Okay. So the username is, let's say, myself. Doesn't like it. Okay. I'm gonna access management console. Password is this. I don't need to recreate this one. The permission. Now I have the EC2 create. I've created a group. Which is EC2. So you create a group, and this is the policy. Okay. So use this policy to um, to allow your user to access everything inside EC2. Okay. So how you would do that is just basically what you need to do. You go to the permission, and you just create a group. You click on create group policy. Then you click on custom policy, select. Then you just type your code here. Okay. You name it. Okay. And you will create this one. As I told you, here's the policy. Okay. You can stop and read the policy and just copy it from here. Okay. So here we go. Now we go to the review, create user. Okay. So now what we need to do, we have to go and just need to close this one. Now I click on the user. There are no groups. I add user to groups, EC2, and I add in to the groups. Okay, now this user has this group. Now also I go to the security credentials. Excuse me. As you can see, this user has no access key ID, but we need the AWS access key ID here. So I will go ahead and generate this one. It will give you two things. I'll copy and paste the AWS access key ID, and I type it here. Okay. Now the secret access key ID is this one. Go ahead. Now it's going to ask you for default region name. You should be able to see, like when you go here, if you go back to the EC2, you should see where you are. You're like in US East, but US East has 1, 2, 3, 1B, 1A, 1B, 1C. I'll show you exactly. Like you have US East 1, US West 1, US West 2. But I'm going to go by default. If it doesn't exist here, just type it. Just type the whole thing. US East 1. Press enter. There's nothing here. Okay. So this is it. Okay. Now what we're going to do, first step is to first perform our first connection to AWS. Let's see if we can access AWS right now. So we do AWS EC2 describe regions. Okay. So what we're trying to do, we're just trying to perform our first connection to AWS. As you can see, we can see all the regions inside AWS. Like we have AP South 1, AP West, EU West 2, EU West 1, and this is the one that I'm using right now, US East 1. Okay? These are the availability zones, basically. That's what they call. Okay? So now what we're going to do, we're going to generate a key. Why? We're trying to start building our first EC2 server, okay, using AWS CLI. Okay. The EC2 servers allow admins to import a SSH key. So as there is no physical console that we can attach for EC2, SSH is the only default option we have for accessing a server, okay? So the public SSH key is stored within AWS, okay? So AWS will keep your public key. So you are free to allow AWS to generate the public and private key or generate the key yourself, okay? So for now, I'm just going to create the key myself. So what you have to do now, the next step is to just type this SSH keygen, okay? RSA -f, put it here under SSH, I call it EC2. It's going to be for the 4096 bits, okay? Everything looks good. So it's generating a public key, no passphrase, and it created the key for me. Now what we need to do, we have to, after, you can supply a passphrase, but I don't recommend a passphrase, okay? Now we have to import our SSH public keys into AWS, okay? For that, you have to do this, EC2, AWS EC2 import key pair, okay? The key name, which is, this is my key. I'm gonna call this my EC2 key. EC2 key, okay? Now, public key material. Now, just gonna cat this. There's $sign, okay? Sorry, I need to put parentheses here. Cat. Pop. Okay, so AWS import key pair. The key name, my EC2 key, public key material, and we're good to go. Okay, so it already exists because I have already created this one before. So if we go to EC2 and go to key pairs, you see this key created just now. Okay, so we can just use the console and just create it, but we're just trying to use the command line. Okay. So now we are going to create a security group here. So the security group is like a firewall which allow connection to your AWS instances. Like for example, you're allowing port 22, port 443, port 80. You allow inbound rules basically, right? So in order to do that, you have to type AWS EC2, right? We do create security group. Okay, so you do AWS EC2 create security group. So we're gonna create a security group. What we're gonna do, we're gonna add group name. I'm gonna call this my first security group. Okay, I'm just gonna say SSH only. Okay, I'm gonna call it group name, and the description is description. I'm just gonna add a description for it. Inbound SSH only. So I'm going to create it. Okay, so let's press enter and see what happens. So it created a group, a security group for me here. As you can see, if you go to the security group, So my first security group SSH only, inbound SSH only description. But as you can see, there are no inbound rules here. Okay, there are no inbound rules. But we are going to create the inbound rules, and for that, first okay. Let me just type the command, and I'll show you what we need to do. So now, clear this one. You have to type AWS EC2. Okay, authorize security group ingress. Okay, so ingress means inbound here in this case. Okay, now the group name was this one. Easy group. Type it. I just put it here. Okay, this is the group name. Now the CIDR. What is the CIDR? Basically, you need to know the external IP address of your workstation, okay? Because you want to allow your instance to connect to this instance from where you are, okay? For example, from your home address. So, for example, this is my IP. Get this one. This is my IP. CIDR. Sorry, --CIDR. This is my IP /32, okay? Because it's just a single host. And we're going to just allow protocol TCP port 22. Okay, so we're just gonna allow SSH from my home IP address, and let's see what happens. Okay, so now if I go back here and see, now it allowed port 22 from the source IP, which is this one. Okay, so we need to know the Amazon machine image ID for the Linux EC2 machine we are going to provision, right? Because if you want to create the instance, you need to know the AMI ID. AMI IDs for images differ between regions, right? So for now, we can describe images to determine the AMI ID for Amazon Linux AMI, like for example 2013, right, or something like that, to see what we're trying to do. So let's just type this command, and I'll show you what I mean. AWS EC2 describe images owner. I'll explain to you what it does. Here, then I'm gonna filter name by name, and values equal a and my TV, for example 2013 .09.02 .x86. I'm not sure if it just comes back with anything, but we're just gonna give it a try. 64 EBS. Okay. Let's see if it comes back with anything. Takes a while. Because what we're interested in finding is the value Okay, so there is no image by that name. Okay, we are connected to like what we're trying to do. We're just gonna try to connect and run an instance to see if we can, because we need the image ID. If we don't have the image ID, then we're not able to access it, right? Just give me a sec. Again. I don't think you'll find anything here. What I would do, I'm pretty sure it won't come back with any images, but what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create to run an instance with an instance ID or go to here, go to launch instance, the AMI ID. I go with this one. I choose this AMI ID. So you go to the launch instances, I just copy and paste this AMI ID. Okay. Let's see what happens. Okay. Or you can just use this one. So yeah, I made, most likely I made a mistake into what I've typed here. There was a typo, but basically if you type this one, then you can come up with this. Or you can just have your own image. Let me just try with my own image right now. So I do AWS EC2 run instances. Okay. Image ID. So this is the image ID that I was trying to. Okay. The key name is my EC2 key because we're just going to use this key to connect to this one. And the instance type, that's how you find the instance type. Basically, you go here, select this one, then you select your instance type. So we're going to go with t2.micro. Okay. We're going to go with instance type t2.micro. Oops, sorry. Just copy and paste this one. Okay. Do this one. Oops, I did it. Sorry, let me just copy and paste this one again. One more time. Okay, t2.micro, and the security groups. That's how you create an instance. Okay, go back, my EC2 security group, and go with the by the group name. This is how you do this. Okay, security group. Okay, let's see if it works. Okay, so it's going to be, let's see if it's going to create this. So as you can see, it's creating the instance for me inside US East 1B with this instance ID and using this security group, and this is the red hat as you can see. Okay, so run this command AWS EC2 describe instances. As you can see, this is my instance. There are like 2 instances right now running, right? As you can see, there are 2 running instances. These are all the information. This is running, and this is my second instance. Okay. So now after you have created the instance, now you have to SSH to it, right? But how would you SSH to it? Okay, this is the public DNS. You can use this one to SSH to it. But before that, let's just do this. We do SSH-I. If you remember, we put the public key here, which was EC2, right? -L, EC2 user, which is the username. This is the user, okay? I'm just going to use the EC2 key using EC2 user. And here's the copy and paste this one. EC2 user. Security group. From 72432. This one, or let me see. So we go to the instances. One 129. 129. That's what it's this one. I'll show you exactly what. So I type it in SSH-I, SSH EC2 -L EC2 user. Doesn't like my key. Let's find out what's the reason for it. So let's just see the commands. So my EC2 key, my EC2 key. This is how you finish. Add the pen key here. Okay. Let me just add this one. I'm trying to troubleshoot this one. SSH. Now we're trying to connect to this one, which is okay. EC2 key. Let's see what happens. As you can see, I'm able to log into it. So basically, you type this command, and also EC2 174, which is this public DNS. So you use this public DNS to log into the